Good morning. On this bold question crunch, the amazing artist Tiffy Inks is here to answer questions about her mastery of painting pop art, choosing color palettes, and our mutual love for mystery solving meddling kids. I can't remember exactly when I found your Instagram page. I know it
hmm
was some art challenge. Uh
It might have been
uh
June
I think
or
it's June
October.
Tune. What was the other one?
Either June soon or October, one of those two.
One of those two. I'm pretty
hmm
sure it was June, but I discovered your work, and as a huge nerd, I've been a fan of your work. Every time you post another piece, it's just so fantastic.
Thank you.
Um, so I wanna find out more about your art history. What
Okay.
your path from like being a little kid sketching out cartoons. I assume that that's where it started because that's
Yeah.
often where it starts for any artist picking up a pen and like, hey, look, it's Bugs Bunny, let me draw.
Right.
So, what is your art history?
So my art history started when I was in the third grade. I was into reading at that time. Washington Post would come out with the Sunday comics every Sunday, and so I would take the comics, especially was it Baby Blues, Garfield. I can't think of the other one, Beetle Bailey. Beetle Bailey was probably my most favorite one. And so I just started to randomly started to sketch out those comics even during class. And of course, per usual, it's always like, oh, well, Tiffany, no, you need to be doing your work. But I'm like, but my work is done. So now what? I have nothing else to do. So I would constantly just sketch out those characters. Then I start moving into Warner Brothers, like Bugs Bunny, Taz. I was huge sketching Sylvester all the time. I probably cannot remember how to sketch Sylvester now freehandedly on my own without a reference. I'm getting older, so it's not the same. But then, of course, for me, I've been a huge Scooby Doo fan, still am. And so that's when from Scooby Doo, I tried to create my own little characters. They were called Ghetto Babies. I don't know why, how that began, and never fully successfully did it. And up until I want to say maybe I got into high school, it started to get more heavier where people and I had classes with, they're like, oh, there's that kid that's quiet, but she's always drawing all the time. But she does good work, but she draws all the time. And I decided to just keep going with it. My dad put me in, I think at the time it's called art instruction schools. And so from there, he wanted me to go outside of just drawing on pencils and using Sharpie. So I learned to work with other mediums such as watercolor, which I commend anybody who is good at it because I cannot do it whatsoever. I learned how to sculpt, which also I am not the best at either. I tried to make a little cup and saucer, and it definitely indented inward. And I tried to give it to my dad as a Father's Day gift. And I'm pretty sure he probably was like trying to figure out what to do with it, but he accepted it anyway. What else did I learn? I learned stippling, which is like creating a bunch of dots to form an actual either a face, an eye, which is actually my favorite to do if I was going to get into realism. And then I also got into charcoal, which is also my other favorite favorite medium to do. And it does get messy, but I kind of like being messy, but I also like cleaning up at the same time. And then after a while, I kind of like stopped drawing. I guess adulthood took over in my 20s, and I kind of like put a pause on it. Probably want to say maybe when I got around like 23, 24, I hit like a really dark path in my life and I needed to find a better outlet. And so I got back into drawing all over again. And at that time, I kind of wanted to branch or how to figure out, okay, so I can draw Bugs Bunny, but what can I do to Bugs Bunny to kind of make him stand out a little bit more? And so I started to take my love for jigsaw puzzles and I started to merge that, try to make Bugs Bunny look a little bit more conform, make him look more puzzle style. And so that's where I started going forward with it, but also going back to making sure like cleaning up my lines, making bolder lines so that way their face stands out more, learning how to re-clean my work over and over and over so that way my colors look more bolder, whether I'm doing illustration or if I'm doing painting. And I started teaching myself how to paint 2018, which still shocks a lot of people. Yes, it shocks a
Okay,
lot.
so you saw my facial expression.
Yes, I did. So a
Hold
lot of
on,
people were very
Be-
shocked.
before you go on there, because I am. Yeah, flabbergasted is the word. I am
Yeah.
flabbergasted. You said 2018?
Yes, 2018 is when I taught myself how to paint.
Holy, okay. Because your
I
paintings are fantastic, and I was going to
thank
ask about
you.
that, but I needed to take a moment breather to realize that 2018?
Yes.
Oh
It,
no!
it doesn't
Wow.
say, but yeah, I think about sometimes I'm like, wow, like I was only really doing this for 3 years, but yeah, I trust me. I wanted to quit the first time I tried. I created my first painting was of Louise from Bob's Burgers, and I cried because I could not understand how colors work. I didn't understand like why did my paint not look as smooth as when I see my other art peers. I'm like, this is nuts. I had no patience. I still have no patience, and I'm like, nope. I can't do this. So I like stopped for like 3 months and I started back on it again. And that's when I took what do you call it? Harley Quinn's symbols that she keeps like on her bodysuit. I started making those and I was like, okay, this time we're gonna practice, we're gonna breathe, we're gonna take our time. So I slowly started learning how to work with the brush and I was like, oh, well, this is nice. But then my friends were like, well, wait till you start learning about color theory and learning how to use backgrounds. I'm like, yeah, see, no, right there is where you're going to lose me. But I started like studying some more. I started asking my friends for advice, learning stuff on YouTube, figuring out which paint works, which doesn't, learning about different brushes and what they do. And from there, it's like the more you keep working on it, the more better you get at it. And I still feel like I'm kind of getting into a little bit of my prime where I'm still learning colors. I'm still learning how to do backgrounds. I hate doing them. Oh my god, it's like drives me nuts. But people always ask like, how do you know your colors? I'm like, I don't know. I just pick a color and I just work with it the best of my abilities. For the most part, I've learned about how complementary colors work. And that's pretty much how I choose most of my background colors for almost all of my paintings to an extent. Sometimes if I want to work around with like my Scooby Doo ones I have, I wanted to work with tertiary colors. So I'm like, well, why not see what it looks like using just those three solid colors, which was not easy to do whatsoever. But thank God they made little plastic cups so I can store these colors because I could not recreate them if I tried.
2018, really? Like, I'm still because so I don't like painting. I try to avoid painting whatsoever because I can't get the solid colors that you do. Like
Yeah.
I see the strokes, and that's why whenever I have painted, I've been like, I'm just gonna do impressionism because that is a good excuse to never have to worry about solid lines.
Exactly.
Um, no offense to any actual impressionists out there, but your lines are amazing. I was looking at one of my favorite ones is your video of you doing the one with Krusty and Bob,
Yeah.
and
I still have to finish that one.
yeah, but your straight lines and your font work is amazing.
It takes a while learning to use like what people use called the grid method, which is the most tedious thing to learn how to do when it comes to painting. I've learned that for me, since in a sense, like I have an eye, but I don't have the best eyes for it. Grid style method works just as good because for me, I'm like, all right, I'm getting it just as accurate as can be because I can be a little bit of a perfectionist when I want things to look a certain way. And then if they don't, then I'm like, oh well, just screw it. I'm just gonna put a whole gesso over it. I'm gonna start all over. And for that one, I actually had to start over at least 3 times. So I had to put the amount, very thin layer of gesso on top of it if I didn't like it. I'm just like, yep, nope, we're starting this all over again until we get it right.
You're making me feel better now. Because your video, okay, so I uh, a lot of people when they watch me draw, because I'm really a fast artist and I can get
Hmm.
stuff done, and so people have told me that I'm intimidating. Seeing your videos, I understand that intimidation. Seeing how
Hmm.
insanely amazing your painting work, and you're like, oh no, it's taking a lot of practice and a lot of patience, and I don't like it, and a lot of times I start over. I'm like, okay, good, that
Yeah.
feels better. Um, so you were mentioning that you're a big fan of comic strips
Yeah.
in the newspaper. Have you been to Islands of Adventure in Florida?
I have not. I've been to, I didn't go to Universal Studios, which is on my bucket list to do at some point in time, if not this year, next year. But I have been to like the Disney World parks out there, which was actually really fun. Although I will say I was terrified of Jaws, even though I know it's mechanical. I still was not a fan trying to satisfy in that ride. Like I was screaming and crying. I was probably pulling on this old man who was next to me. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I don't like this ride whatsoever. Mind you, I'm like 20 years old on this ride, like freaking out like I'm 5. And there's little kids in front of me like, oh wow, that's so cool. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Well, the reason why I ask about Islands of Adventure is that there's a land called Toon Lagoon, and it's like it's their response to Toontown, and it's all
Mhm.
about comic strip characters.
Oh wow.
And I don't know, I loved it because there were a
Mhm.
lot of statues of characters that I would never see a statue for. When you said Beetle Bailey, they had a Beetle Bailey statue, and
Yeah.
they had Marmaduke. They had a sign that says they said I'm in full color, so it must be Sunday. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what kid knows that joke? What kid is looking at that and they're like, oh yeah, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I think you'd really dig it if you're into newspaper, because like I was enjoying
I
myself
would.
thoroughly.
Yeah, I would definitely have to go and check that out.
I don't know. It's a strange theme park. I only went because I wanted to take the train from one park to another for the Harry Potter world, and then when I got
Yeah.
to Toon Lagoon, I'm like, this is weird. I love it, but whatever. And then you mentioned working on Bugs Bunny and making it a puzzle, making a puzzle piece, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, your disconnected paintings, I don't, is that the term that you want to use for them? Because
Yeah.
it reminds me of those games where, remember, they would scramble up an image and you had to slide the images to make
Yes.
the,
Yeah. Exactly. I used to play those games all the time. I still have
what,
the game on my phone. I play it.
is that the inspiration for the painting? Because it's great. It's
Yeah.
the character is nostalgic, but then remembering the game is also another level of nostalgia, and I love looking at your pieces.
Yeah, so those definitely was a creative piece. I will always want to try to make things that I used to love enjoying from my childhood and try to maneuver those around. Like the who else had did the Joker was one, Harley Quinn I did, Two Face, the DC comic I kind of did that whole theme, which surprisingly quite a few people are asking if I'm going to be bringing those back. Which I will be in these next upcoming months. Thankfully, after this art show in August, I will have much more free time to go back and do those things. So, yes, I will be bringing them. I will have, I actually wrote a list of characters that I do want to try it out. I will say one is Thundercats. So,
Oh,
people have been asking, so I was like, all right, let's go, let's dive deeper a little bit into it. So I definitely been itching to go ahead and put a little couple of Thundercats characters out there and definitely do it in that same exact style.
the show in DC.
Hmm.
It's in DC, right? I'm just
Yes.
remembering. Okay, because
Yep.
I know I've seen.
August
I,
1st.
and what is that show?
So that one is the Black Girls Art Show. I've been doing them. I did the first one was it December of last year, and then I recently did one for them again Mother's Day weekend. And now they decide normally they only do it in just Atlanta, but I guess this year they decided they want to go ahead and just expand to other cities. So they're going back to my home turf, which I'm originally from Maryland, but I moved and live in North Carolina right now. So it'd be nice for me to do it back at home and get to see my friends who all some of them have already bought tickets, so they're like anxious to see because a lot of them never had a chance to even see me do any art shows per se. And this also be my mom's first time coming to an art show, so she get to see me work. But of course, her first thing is, do people snap fingers at these events? I'm like, my mom, this is not a poetry slam. Like, it's basically a museum, except you get to talk to people and you buy things. Okay, so that's how it works. So it'll be nice to get a chance for her to see me in my element for a change. It'll be nice.
I'm definitely gonna snap fingers at museums now.
I'm starting to think that too next time I go to another one. I'm like, yeah, I think I should snap my fingers too, like my mom suggested.
Oh, that's a nice statue. Yeah, I dig
Yeah,
it.
no, I like it a lot.
Well, yeah, it makes sense that your friends haven't seen your work since you've only been painting since 2018.
I know.
um, well, that's cool. I know another art show that you do is Booze and Pancakes,
Yes.
which every time you post an ad for that, it makes me so hungry because I am a big fan of beer. I'm a big fan of booze and
Mhm.
pancakes. I mean, if you
Pancakes.
substitute, I would be. If it was booze and waffles, then I'm really
Mhm.
sold and I'll be there. But booze and pancakes, I like pancakes. Pancakes are good.
Yeah, it's a good combination too, actually.
Oh, absolutely. Um, And I love the pop culture and the twist on pop culture characters that you do. One of my favorite
Mhm.
ones is the one that you did, your different version of Beetlejuice.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh my goodness. So that one, I'm not even sure how I decided I wanted to like change his look, change his color, give him a different look. I wanted to keep so people can recognize him, of course, known for his pinstripe suits. But I figured, well, let me add a little twist. So let me throw a little bit more color besides it being just, black and white stripes. Kind of give him a little more dirty mold look to him. And I still have him on my shirt. There's a shirt company here locally in Durham. They actually found my Instagram page and wanted to know if they could put my work on shirts. So I was like, okay, sure, why not? So they had what's called like an artist month. I think it starts in October, where they'll pick like 3 local artists in the area, and then they'll actually sell their work on shirts, and whatever they sell, we get profit from. So I actually did the first year I moved down here in North Carolina, which was in 2019, and I was shocked to know that so many people were buying it alone. So then it was like, you got to bring us more work when you get a chance. I'm like, okay, sure, why not? So yeah, that's how that started.
And I feel like I'm amazed that so people bought the Beetlejuice one.
A lot of people came. They were buying them on shirts, hoodies. They also do bags as well. So people were buying them up, and I was so shocked to learn about it when they sent me the check. And I was like, "Oh wow, I did not expect this
That's
whatsoever."
really that's really interesting because I didn't think
Yeah.
that that cartoon of Beetlejuice would be that well known.
I wouldn't think either because I'm like I only figure a lot of people who are like 80s 90s babies, maybe a little bit of early 2000s will understand that show. And I guess maybe some people who thought the movie itself would be a little bit different, but I'm like no, you have to watch the cartoon to really understand Beetlejuice, not just from the actual movie, which was still good, but still.
I recently saw a YouTube video where someone who was watching Beetlejuice for the first time was talking about how disgusting it is, and
Oh
she was like, I don't know why people like this. This is a gross.
my
He's practically a villain. How he's like dealing with Lydia. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. He's a
yeah.
monster. We're
He's like,
not
oh,
supposed to like him.
right. I guess they expect him to be like Casper, but no, that's not how this works.
What is an obscure character that you feel like you might be the only person who remembers it?
Road Rovers.
Yeah.
I've been obsessed with Muzzle, even though he doesn't make much noise. But he was definitely a favorite character of mine, even though I can't think of the Doberman's name, but I hated his arrogance to the fullest extent. But he was still he was my second fave without a doubt.
I think I saw your painting of biker mice from Mars, and that's
Oh
like
my!
one.
People were just like, "How old are you to understand what biker mice?" I'm like, "You guys realize I was born in '88?" They're like, "No, there's no way you're born." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in my 30s," but so they're very
But you
shocked at that.
But no one knows. So there have been a lot of people like expressing like knowing biker mice from Mars.
There's probably maybe like 3 or 4 people who hit me up and they're just like, "You know nothing about that." I'm like, yes, I do." Same thing, even with Street Sharks when I did them, people were like, "There's no way you know what Street Sharks are." I'm like, yeah, you'd be quite amazed. Or what's the other old show that used to come out? No, they're not really cartoons, but they're kind of like anime-ish. Dinosaurs is another one. A lot of people don't know who they are either. I'm just like, wow, folks. let's get
I recently was in a conversation with someone and I had to explain Mighty Max because someone
gosh.
was we were talking about the toy. We were
Mm-hmm.
talking about toys and I was saying that yeah, they had a really awesome thing where the face was a thing, but then you open it up and then there's all these like different layers and whatnot to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I explained the cartoon, and that's a really weird show to have to explain to people.
Very.
um, but yeah, I feel like when I saw the Biker Mice from Mars painting, I was like, all right, cool. I totally understand what area of cartoons you're at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely 80s, 90s kid, without a doubt.
And I feel like wasn't Biker Mice. I always, whenever I think of cartoons, I think about what channel I watched them, what day I was watching them, and I
Mm-hmm.
think Biker Mice for me, Biker Mice from Mars was on UPN with all the
Yep.
cartoons that weren't the really like Street Sharks, like
Mm-hmm.
Mighty Max. I think that I'm trying to remember. I think Mummies Alive was no Double Dragons was definitely on UPN.
Yeah.
and I love that block of cards. Oh, Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys. That's another one that's in the UPN block. Um,
I'm trying to think,
so
was Snorks included on that too, or no? Or was
which
Snorks?
one was that?
Snorks, were they included on that on UPN? But I'm also thinking maybe Cartoon Network. Maybe they might have been. Or was it Boomerang?
I can't remember if it was Boomerang or I. See, when I'm thinking about that cartoon, I'm thinking of NBC or CBS. That's where my mind's going to, but I could be wrong. Huh.
I'm gonna have to Google that one.
Yeah, right. I just remember being a kid and having Saturday morning cartoons. It was either usually you're gonna go to
ABC.
ABC, Fox. Those are gonna be your
the
great WB. Well,
Mm-hmm.
WB was always my afternoon block. I
Those were
love the afternoon.
Like, what was it? American Dragon, Yu-Gi-Oh, which I had the longest. I feel like I watched them more than I watched Pokemon at the moment. Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain. Those were definitely my go-tos.
Have you watched the new Animaniacs?
I haven't had a chance to, but I did get a chance to watch some of the. I think they were on Hulu, so I had a chance to watch some of the previews, and I was like, all right. I like that they kind of kept. They didn't change up too much of their looks. They look a little bit more crispier now, but I prefer that keep it that way versus how I guess Warner. I think was it Paramount changed up the Rugrats now, and I'm kind of like, no.
The Rugrats are CG, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I was like, they can. There's some things you just gotta leave alone. And that one, I was like, nah, you gotta leave Rugrats alone.
The only big complaint I have about the new Animaniacs is that it's mostly just the Warners and Pinky and the Brain.
Mm-hmm.
They're not diversifying their their cast. They have a lot of characters that I'm just not seeing. I miss the Good Feathers. I miss Buttons and Mindy.
Funniest though.
What was that?
The Good Feathers are the funniest. They were my favorite too.
I love the Good Feathers, and that whole bit. I remember being a kid and watching the Good Feathers and thinking they're hilarious, but not having the knowledge of Goodfellas, and so not getting all the jokes, but getting them as kids. And then you watch Goodfellas, and you're like, oh, because Joe Pesci does that whole bit. It's like, I'm funny, and they have that whole question, and I did not. It's weird realizing why it's funny as an adult. Why they did that.
Right.
So you mentioned working with color palettes, and you just pick a color and learning color theory and complementary colors. And you mentioned it's funny because like when I was thinking of this question, I went straight to your Scooby-Doo painting.
Mm-hmm.
And you just picked a random color and went from there because I think that your color palettes are gorgeous.
Thank you. For that one, there's actually a series that I want to actually start with it because I want to start using not just tertiary. I want to get into the primary colors, the secondary, and some of the complementaries. But I just haven't figured out which characters I want to use them with just yet. But primarily for me, I usually just look at the color wheel and figure out which colors to go from there. Sometimes I actually will go on Google and look at different color palettes. A lot of times I go on Lowe's and I'm buying like most of my shipping supplies from there. And usually I swing by like the paint area and I look at a lot of the color swatches. And so for me, it's like I'll take a picture of it with what I like on my phone. And then now what's different with technology, you can actually take a picture of it with your iPad. If I go on Procreate, it can actually merge the actual colors over. Yeah, it's a whole tool I found out on YouTube. There's a whole, I think it's like a 5-minute video about it on how you can pull, even if you go on, like, if you do a Google search engine, you can merge the colors that you see from your Google search engine into Procreate and they'll create like a whole color palette for you.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I was like, wow, had I known this earlier ahead of time, I probably would have been doing that same method for all of my work. But I guess eventually they get caught up with times. But hey, better now than then.
I'm always going to be a big fan of tertiary colors just because there's a lot of really fun colors out there that a lot of people don't play around with.
Yep.
I am a big fan of complementary colors. I keep that in mind in almost anything I work in. And if you're not familiar with for the listeners, I know you are familiar with complementary colors, but for listeners who don't know complementary colors, it's like if you have the color wheel here's a color, and it's the color on the opposite end of the wheel.
Yeah.
It's green and red, right? That's the combination because Christmas does it. Like I
Yep.
think, yeah. Green, red, blue, orange, yellow, purple, that sort of thing. And when the complementary colors are next to each other, they're going to make each other look so much brighter than they really are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you use them in your artwork, and it makes sense because your artwork is vibrant,
Mm-hmm.
and I just really love that Scooby Doo piece because one, I'm a big fan of Scooby Doo,
Yeah.
and two, those colors are very vibrant, but they're very unexpectedly bright colors because they're darker,
Mm-hmm.
but they pop so well.
Yeah, it's all I've learned that the less you put on your brush, and if you go in the same direction each time, that's what makes your paint smooth. Plus layers as well. But I've learned that's the trick to getting everything to look so smooth instead of having like that weird clumpy look to your paintings. I was like, oh. So I told myself for this one, I'm like, we're gonna take our time. We're gonna simply just ease the strokes. We're just going to go the same direction each time, which is very tedious and it can be tiring because you're like, oh, I just want her to get this section painted already. But the more you take your time with it, I guess it's kind of painting is like yoga. The more you learn, the better you get at it. The more you concentrate with it, the better your strokes will be. And I think for now, it's like I'm trying to merge myself from not using when I do my line work. I used to use paint markers. I still do in the sense of where I outline it, but I go back and I fill in using an actual like use a zero round brush, or I might use a liner brush as well, and I'll just go back and recorrect my strokes, which makes it more bolder now. I've noticed it's a huge difference, and I tell myself the more I keep working at it, especially with wrist control, that also helps. Learning how to actually pull the brush towards you, not away from you, can give you those solid lines. And I'm always amazed to see how certain things turn out. And people are always amazed, like, there's no way you did this by hand. I'm like, yeah, I did it by hand.
I've watched your videos on Instagram. You've definitely done it by hand, and I don't think I'm ever going to get over you saying that you just started in 2018. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think for me, that's the biggest things for a lot of artists when I do meet them when I go to different shows, especially artists that I have looked up to that I've been following for so many years. Um, they always look at my work. They're just like, "Wait, you've been doing this for like a decade?" I'm like, "No, just three." And they're just like, "There's no way you've done this for 3 years." And I'm like, I can't even explain it how I managed to get this far in 3 years. I still feel like there's so many things that I want to go with. I know for me now, I finally found the direction I want my work to go towards. I know everybody has different stuff. Some people do realism, some people are into abstract. For me, it's always been pop art. Roy Lichtenstein, Andy Warhol are my two biggest favorites. And I feel like for me, there's not a lot of female pop artists out there that does the work. So for me, I want to change that up to be one of the few women out there who are into strictly just the pop art culture. So that's why for me, I'm sticking with the cartoons. It's always been my go-tos. I've always tried to make it a little bit different, whether if I'm changing up the colors, whether like you said, tertiary, primary, secondary, which now I've learned. I bought some fluorescent paint, which I have a very well known character in the process, which I will be debuting him hopefully for the Pancake and Booze in Philly August 7th. So that character will be done in all fluorescent paint, which is not easy to use, which I have learned over and over. I bought like little canvases and I've been trying to like figure out what's the best way to work to get them to look just as solid as any of my other paintings, but also realizing that these things glow in the dark, right? So I'm like looking at a whole bunch of like glow in the dark paintings all around my room. I'm like, yeah, I might need to like just flip these over, or else my room just looks like one big nightclub. But it can't. I have to change that up. But I am looking forward to bringing this piece to the Philly show, though.
What makes them difficult to paint?
Because they're not as they're less transparent. So it's like you really have to work with them in multiple layers, just like any certain colors that you may buy. Um, and I think it's just maybe the texture and how they even feel. It's almost like really thin, and it almost I want to say looks a little bit watery, so it's almost close to a little bit of a watercolor. So you really kind of have to like work through it. There are other brands that have the same fluorescent paint. Some of them might be thicker, so I bought like more of what's called a heavy body fluorescent. So those would be applied more thicker, so that way I have to have less layers. Thank God. But even in still like certain colors, like everyone knows that greens and blues are the worst colors to use for paint. It's so hard to work with. That's why more people buy house paints versus whether acrylic or oils, because it's less layers to use. They come out much smoother rather than you also trying to mix colors of yellow or blue to get that perfect green. But even then, still, when you do that, it still looks transparent. You're like, nope, I need this to be more opaque, so this is not going to work.
Now you mentioned that you want to be because there aren't a lot of female painters known
hmm
for pop art.
hmm
Um, and that made me think about when you said that you made the Bikers Mice from Mars painting, and someone said
hmm
you don't know this character.
yeah.
Do you think that that's them challenging you because of your age or because you're a woman?
I want to say because of age, uh,
Okay.
factor. I want to say that can be it. I feel like maybe if I had probably done this maybe in my early teens, early 20s, then I probably would have been a little bit more like museum wise, gallery wise. But I feel like, you can start painting at any day. You can start being an artist really at any age. It's just in a matter of the time you put into it, networking yourself, putting yourself out there to do certain things more, because you never know who you come across whatsoever that may have been watching you grow. And there's a lot of people that you can get connections into uh, with getting yourself placed in galleries, whether they're small, big, whether there might be 10 people that show up, whether there might be 40,000. It just depends. And I think for me, I never look at, I try to tell myself that whether if I might have two big fans or one fan or maybe 20 of them, it's never going to change what I put out. I know with people, when they think of black artists, they feel like, oh, well, you should do paint portraits of people, or, you should do more realism. You should do, more like paint celebrities or stuff like that. And I don't knock people who do it. I love to see those work. But I also feel like it's not much of a competition in a sense. I feel like it's something that a lot of them do. And I think for me, I'm always going to love cartoons. I will never stop loving it. I'm always going to continue to paint and draw cartoons, probably until I'm not able to work with my hands anymore. And even then, still, I probably might try to find some other invention I can use to just do the work for me at some point. For me, I'm always wanting to keep that level where it's like it's a good break to have to see. I'm not kind of like being an underdog when I go to these art shows, because a lot of them you'll see like the same things, and you'll see like, oh wow, like cartoons, and oh my gosh, her lines and work are clean. They're so bold. They're so huge. And so for me, I feel like I'm never looking at it as a downfall. I'm never going to look at it as a hindsight where I'm like, oh, well, since not a lot of people are into cartoons like that anymore, maybe I should stop. Nope. I'm never going to stop doing it whatsoever.
I was thinking more along the lines of as far as gatekeeping, because I've heard that there's a lot of gatekeeping in fandoms, and I'm wondering how many other angles of gatekeeping might be there that I'm not familiar with.
hmm
Um, because I just know I've talked to a lot of women that I know about whenever they talk about like video games that they like or cartoons that they like, someone will ask them a bunch of questions to test their fandom to see if they're even worthy of being the fan of this nerdy thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I never understood that because it's like, we all had TVs and there's cartoons on them, so
hmm
I don't have to remember all of the Street Sharks names to still like Street Sharks.
Right. Exactly. I think that's how some people feel like me. They're like, oh, well, for me, I probably say I'm more heavy on like knowing. I probably watch almost every Scooby Doo. I used to have like the lunch pails, the boxes. I have maybe two Scooby Doo puzzles. One of them I have to actually finish working on. And at one point, I went to a Comic Con. And I met the person who played the voice of Shaggy on the actual TV shows, the '80s. He was there, and so that was nice to get a chance to see how to learn about them. And at one point, my mom learned that she told me she actually used to be scared of watching Scooby Doo when she was a teenager, and I never understood it because I'm just like, wait, you used to be scared of like these little monsters and everything. But she said for her, the skull guy who likes to talk, who has like he has like the skull, but it lights up. That one creeped her out the most. For me, I think the creeper was probably for me the most frightening. I just couldn't stand his voice. And then for a while, maybe because I had a teacher whose voice kind of sounded like the creeper, and I probably had nightmares about it for a while.
That's way too cool that you got to meet Casey Kasem. That's
Yeah.
nuts. Like,
I think what he came to the Awesome Con in DC. Oh my goodness, what year was when I worked? I worked in DC for a hotel, and I want to say it might have been 20. I want to say either 2016 or 2017 that year I met him. And it was just like on random. I was like, oh crap, I did not realize until he spoke. And I'm like, oh, I know who you are. And it was just so weird. My friends were like, wait, what? I'm like, you guys don't know who this is? Like, seriously? They're just like, no. I'm like, you guys don't watch Scooby Doo enough? They're just like, no, not really, not much. I'm like, okay, you know what? Fine. I'm going to have my fangirl moment and still enjoy it. So,
I know Scooby Doo recently, and I still have to buy the DVD.
mhm.
Um, of their Halloween special. I saw the trailer for it, and it was just nuts because first it was Scooby Doo, and it says Halloween, and I'm like, all right, cool, I love it already. And then they're
Right.
like, and here's Elvira. I'm like, okay, even better.
Yeah.
And then they have Fear Gas. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then they introduce Scarecrow from Batman in this one movie, and I'm like,
Mhm.
are you just going down a list of my favorite things? What's going on here? And then Bill Nye the Science Guy shows up. I'm like, come on, man.
Like, what else can you throw in here for me, please? Like, come on, let's keep it going.
But I remember someone told me that they showed me a clip of Courage the Cowardly Dog and Scooby Doo, and I'm like,
hmm
nah, I don't believe that. I have to see
Yep.
something. And then they show me the trailer. I'm like, holy shit! All right.
Yeah. They're just going ahead and just going for it. They're just going to start adding more people to things. I think it's nice to have that good crossover for some of these cartoons because then it's like, yes, I love it. I'm here for it.
Well, I feel like Scooby Doo has been doing it since like it's nothing new for
Yeah,
them. They've been having crossovers and special
especially when they
guests.
had the Scooby Doo and Friends on Boomerang, where they had like the Harlem Globetrotters and everything. That was huge for a while. So I feel like for them, that's probably really the only TV show I can think of at that time frame where I feel like something that's so old they can still kind of come out and still mix some of their old with the new.
I mean, they've been crossing over with Batman since it was Adam West and Burt Ward. So
There
it's
you
nothing.
go.
It's if I ever hear anyone saying, "Oh, now they're just jumping the shark," I'm like, "No, Scooby Doo created. They've been jumping the shark since the beginning. So it's
Ex-
nothing." um, what was one of the most stressful commissions that you've gotten?
uh, Last year I had to do Far Side and Phoenix album cover as a commission work, and I think for me, like, granted, it was done in cartoon style, but it's the first one I've done where at that time I didn't have to do really any shadow work or any highlighting. And I think it's just how the lines and how they had it structured on there, where there's so many bold lines. I'm trying to figure out, okay, so where does the color fit in this? I'm not quite sure. So I was like, yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a struggle. It was more so like messy lines, not nothing, anything clean. So I was like, all right, you guys are going to give me like an aneurysm on the left side of my head, like really quickly if I can't get this right. And I was like, I had like breakdown moments. Like I cried because I couldn't get it right. And I was trying to, like, just the sketch alone was the most difficult part. And so I'm like on the phone with one of my closest art friends, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, this is so hard. Like, I don't understand why. When it's in my realm, it's cartoon. Like, I shouldn't be fucking this up. But it's like, I'm like, I can't get this right. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And it's just like, breathe, take a day, not do anything, get back into it, and you'll be fine. I'm like, no, I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I really was constantly like not wanting to do commissions anymore after doing that painting. But I actually ended up just pushing through it the best way I could. And I was shocked to learn how well. I was like, God damn, this is some hot shit. Like, this really looks good. So the client, of course, she loved it. It was for her boyfriend for his birthday as a surprise gift, and he was blown away. I got a lot of praises for that. A lot of people were just like, it's really hard to try to replicate that because of how the lines look. And I was like, trust me, the amount of pressure I put on myself to get that done, you will not believe it if I tried. So that one was probably the most difficult. Next to the Joker and Red Hood piece will be the next difficult one.
I I know that feeling of having to walk away from a piece
Mm-hmm.
so much.
Yep.
Um, someone got me to draw Shere Khan from Tailspin, and I was looking up his hands, how his hands are drawn or his hands are created,
Aren't they?
and
They look a little uneven to me.
they they kept changing their plan for his hands. The
Yeah.
style of his hands changed from episode to episode, and I was like, "Well, what the fuck, man? Like,
Well,
which
I
one?"
don't know what's the original hand look like if they keep changing it.
It was very frustrating. I didn't know which way I was going to go with that one, and
Yeah.
I had to keep walking away. And I know a lot of people say that hands are the hardest part, and they are. They can be.
Yeah.
But I've gone to Google and I've looked up a bunch of hands on how to do them, and a lot of times, if you're looking at like Looney Tunes hands, Disney hands to Dr. Seuss hands, there's
Mhm.
always like a different style to it where the pinky goes and where the thumbs go, and I'm like, all right, I can do this. But if you keep changing your rules, now it's going to be frustrating. Now I have to figure out which one you want to go with.
Yeah.
Oy. Have you seen the new video game Nickelodeon All Star Brawl?
No, I have not, but I it was sent to me in a DM in regards to about I actually heard about it today, so I will be going through it and look through it, and if so, yes, best believe I will be getting it. I will be dusting
um,
my controllers. I haven't probably hadn't had time to play on my video consoles in probably 3 months now because of client work. Thankfully, it has slowed down. It actually stopped for right now, which I actually have one client to work on this upcoming week. And luckily, usually around this time, late summer, early fall, is when it's a little bit slower for me for client work. So I'm like, I have more time between creating my own work and getting back to playing my video games because I'm into fighting games a lot. Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Street Fighter, those things, and a little bit of Spyro. I'm a huge Spyro fan as well. Crash, Bandicoot's actually pretty good. One of my friends are trying to get me into getting the Dragon Ball Z fighting game. So I was like, all right, sure, why not? I'll try it.
um, Now for the listeners who don't know what Nickelodeon All Star Brawl is, it's pretty much like it's Smash Brothers but with Nickelodeon characters. Um, if you had to pick three characters on your team, and this doesn't have to be any of the characters that they actually have on the game, it could be any
Mhm.
characters that you want. What three Nickelodeon characters would you pick?
I don't know if they can count as one, but I gotta go Cosmo and Wanda from Fairly Odd Parents.
I'm gonna count them as one. I mean, Smash Brothers has the ice climbers. Come on, you can do two.
Right. I gotta go with them. I gotta give me Jimmy Neutron, and I'm trying to think who else. Actually, give me Eliza from Wild Thornberries. I gotta go with those three.
Now, Jimmy Neutron, do you think that he like what kind of weapon would he be armed with?
Whew. That boy probably can come up with so many different things all in one that technically in a sense you almost kind of almost really don't need Cosmo Wanda, but then Jimmy's good for having his little hiccups, and I don't need those hiccups to happen for me at any given time. That's why Cosmo Wanda's going to be there. But then for Eliza, she's fearless. She's one of those person where it's like, all right, sure, why not? Let's do it now. I'll suffer the consequences later. I'm not going to think about it. So that's why I feel like, all right, those three, all right, we can work with it. She can be the more like, let's do it. Give me the weapon. Jimmy can kind of be like, all right, here's weapon. I'm not sure if it's done correctly, but we're going to use it anyway. And then Cosmo Wanda was like, you can just wish all this, right?
Well, yeah, I think that Cosmo, Wanda, and Jimmy, I think that they would be some good projectile characters. So that I'm in my head, I'm like thinking about their fighting styles and comparing it to Smash Bros. Because I'm not really a gamer. I just remember me and my friends getting together for Smash Brothers often,
Right.
and I'm just thinking of like what kind of fighting styles that they would have, and I think that Eliza would be cool, but just a lot less projectiles. Jimmy, Wanda, and Cosmo, there'd be a lot of firing stuff, so that'd be pretty
Mm-hmm.
awesome. And much like with and a lot like the Scooby Doo and Courage, I did not think that this thing was going to be a real thing until friends sent me a trailer for it. That was the only time, because like people post whatever they want, so I don't believe it until I see it.
Yeah, I need the trailers. I need the release dates. I need to see more media coverage on it because that's the only way you're going to get me to be convinced about any of this.
Because I mean, we've all seen it where something will get so close to being even in a trailer,
Yeah.
and we don't know it. It'll go into limbo or just be killed completely.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. And then I'm like, please don't ruin me with a good time. Like, don't do that.
Don't give me hope. Don't give me
Yeah.
hope.
So I'll be that person. I will wait for it. And I'm like, is it there yet? Is it there yet? Like, is it out?
Have you seen the test footage for the Popeye cartoon that we're never gonna get?
No.
Yeah, it was done by the same dude who made Hotel Transylvania.
Oh,
He grew up being a big fan of Popeye, and he wanted to make a Popeye movie.
yeah.
And they made test footage, and the test footage looks fantastic, but it's done. I don't think it's ever gonna happen. I think it's just killed.
I thought so, but I guess maybe they feel like maybe they don't want to move forward with it because it's so classic that they feel like I don't want to mess it up. I'm like, well, I feel like y'all recreating all these other classes now. I'm like, what good harm is it gonna do?
It I recommend watching the test footage because it is gorgeous. It's very in line. It's a good combination of current CG and the rubber hose animation style of Popeye.
Gotcha.
Olive Oil's limbs are definitely there's no bones in her, and you see that in the test footage, and it's just spectacular. Um, and I'm very bummed out that it's never going to happen because I feel like one thing that I really like about one thing I'm one thing I don't really like a lot about a lot of CG movies is that there's no stylization where the plants and clouds they look realistic.
Hmm.
I like it when you can make it look unexpected, where it is stylized. And
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite things about your paintings is that it is definitely through the filter of your artistic um, abilities, of what you want to portray,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely gorgeous. So you can't tell us what you're gonna do for the fluorescent paintings, right? You want to reveal that when you reveal it?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
But I do, like I said, I do want to create. I have another two characters. I have two Invader Zim will be in the same style as the Scooby Doo and the Shaggy painting. As far as the colors are concerned, I'm still undecided. I'm not sure if I want to keep them as their original colors or I might just pick one color from both of them and just use just one flat color. I think it's what's called monochrome style. I do want to try that. So I think for those two alone, those would probably be a good start for me to do it on. Will they be done in time for the August show for Philly? Probably not, but I will at least be showing my viewers what the process will be for it.
Which style do you think is easier, Zim or Scooby?
Scooby.
Scooby?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Scooby seems like the way they illustrate him, he's a little bit more loose. In a sense, it's like because he has so many different versions looks to him, you can almost kind of be wrong, but not necessarily be right. Versus with Zim, he's pretty much that same blockhead eyes are pretty much the same intricate ish. Where it's like, all right, well, in a sense, he's like this, not this solid greenish. Where Scooby, he's kind of like at that time they kind of changed his color tone a little bit. He's almost like three different shades of brown versus like how he was the classic Scooby Doo versus even so now he looks a little bit more tannish versus more of like that dark brown that we're used to seeing him as. So I feel like with him you can kind of like mess around. You can make his nose a little bit bigger. You can probably make the parts of his mouth a little bit bigger. Even his tongue, his collar, everything of that you can pretty much kind of twist it up a little bit. Versus with Zim, it's like you almost kind of have to get it concise, like almost drawing anime characters. They're so clean and concise. You can't be too messy, or else it looks funny.
That is an incredibly valid point. Because like I like drawing Zim because there's a
Hmm.
lot of really straight, jagged edges. When you draw teeth and you draw teeth looking like a zipper, that can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, but you're right because Scooby Doo has gone through so many iterations, and we've just have it in the back of our head. We all know Scooby Doo.
Hmm.
You can do whatever. Because I
Yeah.
told someone that drawing Batman, because Batman's been done so many times, I can't
Hmm.
mess up. I can draw whatever kind of Batman I want, and everyone's just going to take it if I have certain visual cues to let you know it's Batman. But if I
Mm-hmm.
draw some character like Usagi Yojimbo, that character has like only one style, and it's very important.
You're right.
That you mess it up, you mess up one little thing, and it's
That's
suddenly not the character.
something else.
So this episode, this bowl of Question Crunch will come out on International Friendship Day. Now, when I was looking up this day, I've seen so many different days of friendship, so I'm like, all right. Well, and I even saw a list of all the countries that celebrate it on various days, and I was like, all right, whatever. I'm gonna celebrate this day when this bowl comes out. So, who are your favorite animated friends? I know we've mentioned Scooby Doo often, so that could be on the top. But other than Scooby Doo, what are some of your animated best buds?
My other animated, I love Taz. He's just wild and rambunctious. He's a man of very many words. He's been a one. I actually like Dexter. Dexter's Laboratory. He's another one of my favorite pals. Granted, he's like this smart assness to him, but he's smart when he wants to be. I mean, he can have a heart at
But what
times.
about what about friends? Because I know I've seen you do drawings of Arnold and Daryl.
Arnold, World, actually, Doug and Skeeter, those two. But those are definitely in my top. I like their friendship. They're kind of quirky-ish, in a sense. Although Doug is sometimes there's moments where he kind of reminds me of me, where he's a little bit like reserved-ish, and he kind of wants to be out there, but at the same time, it's like he's like a turtle. Like he's like, hey, hi, how's it going? And then as soon as someone speaks to him, he's like, oh, I'm going back in my shell for a little bit, and that's kind of like how I can be a lot of times because, like, granted, I can talk to people, but after a while, I can get real consumed in my own thoughts and my own things, and the anxiety will start to take over, and then I want to go back in my little shell. I think a lot of reasons, like I also used to hate taking art class. I didn't like being praised. I didn't like when teachers wanted to put my work out on display, and they're like, "Look at what she's done." I'm like, "No, no, 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 don't do that. Like, please, let's not talk about my work. I didn't want the recognition whatsoever. I just want to I'm just here in the class just to take it, just to not do anything that I want to do. And I'm like, y'all can go about your business, like, please." So yeah, those are my guys.
I totally understand that. I've always been a big fan of Doug. I feel like if anyone makes even the slightest sound that sounds like the theme song for Doug, you just get that song in your head and you gotta do it.
Yeah, gotta finish it off.
I've got a friend who's done a cosplay of Roger, and it's the creepiest thing to see
Oh
any
my
Doug
god.
characters in live action.
He's my favorite villain, my favorite little. I'm like, but everybody knows Roger. He's a softie. I don't think people understand that he is a big softie. He just has that big tough guy persona. But outside of that shell, I'm like, that man's real soft.
um, it's weird because I'm thinking of Doug and Skeeter, and I'm like, it's weird because those two characters, I feel like I can identify with both of them
hmm
simultaneously, and also not at all.
Yeah.
Because I understand Skeeter's desire to want to goof off and be silly and make sounds, make sound effects when he's talking, but also I'm like, no, calm down. Let's go back to Doug. Let's
Yeah.
draw some Quail Man comics.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Um, so what other combination of friends you've got? Because like I've seen so many of your other drawings, and there's a lot of friendships. There's a lot of team ups.
Alright. Um, Pepper Ann. Their little trio group is one. I actually still have that drawing. It's actually on my wall. Um, I have them. I actually, although they're a little bit more newer now, I'm obsessed with the show. I like Bob's Burgers. I love the kids. Their level of, the brother sisters, but at the same time, they also have that cool friendship. I also kind of like the little twins, Andy and Ollie. They're like the most creepiest people on that show. They're so weird, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, does this make sense? And I like how they are with each other. And it's like, no, I don't want to do it if he doesn't do it. And they're like, but I'm going to do it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do it too. So I like their quirkiness together. It's so weird, but it's like it makes you laugh. I like weird things anyway, so it works.
Which is your favorite episode, or at least what's an episode that comes to mind when I say favorite of Bob's Burgers? And I say that because I
Uh,
can't pick a favorite episode, but I can think of one that goes straight to the top of my head.
there's so many different ones. Oh my gosh. Between when Luis and Coochie Kopi, that when she learned how her love for that, what's that that weird boy band group that came out when she secretly she fanboyed him so bad. I can't think of his name. He had the blonde hair. He was just the cute little boy. That
Right?
one.
I just remember her saying like I don't love him. I just want to slap him. I just want to slap his
Yeah.
stupid face.
With this kid. I like they actually had the episode where they allow like different styles of different artists submit their work of their version of Bob's Burgers. And I kind of like how they had them. They had the Archer look to them. Some of them had the Simpsons look. I was like, yo, this is so dope. What else is another one where Valentine's Day when Tina got crushed by Jimmy and they decided to go for that limo drive and show up to the little dinner reservation. They were riding in that limo. I'm just like, I don't think any of this is legal, but we're gonna work with it. So I think the creators for them, it's such a funny show, and you're just you can't not laugh at it. It's like that it's weird, dark, funny humor that some people you just gotta have a sense of humor to understand that show completely, or you're just gonna be left in the dark.
And I also like it how a lot of people in that show are just really supportive, even when they are the antagonist. I feel like they're antagonists, but they're also not.
Yeah, like Jimmy. I'm like, come on, man, Jimmy Pesto. He's the he makes me sick, but at the same time, just like you're no different from half of these people in the show. I do love the old couple that's on there. I think it's her name Miriam. And their weird cats. Of course, Gail. Oh my gosh, she is. I can't get enough of her. Her and her cat, Mr. Business. Oh, it kills me every time.
I completely forgot what the cat's name was, but that's yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because one of my coworkers has a cat that reminds me of Mr. Business, and so she likes to take pictures of her cat, and so she has one picture of him next to this gnome, and he just looks so unenthused, and I'm like, yep, that's Mr. Business from Bob's Burgers.
Um, and that's another character style, another kind of universe that I love drawing in. That's really fun to
Mhm.
draw in. Just the idea of whenever I draw a character and I'm like, all right, it's Bob's Burgers, so we got to get rid of the chin. It's
Yeah.
just top mouth and then down.
Like all the most of their characters have the same thing. It's like that same flat face, and I'm like, good grief. That's why I think for me it's so easier to just draw them out versus like any other style that they have out now because like they're all the same. They just change their nose. They all pretty much have like the same amount of eye shape, just about. But yeah.
I just feel like whenever I've gotten drawing requests from Bob's Burgers, I'm like, okay, good. This is gonna be relaxing. This is gonna be fun.
Yep.
I don't have to really do too much work on this.
Yeah.
And I've done that. I've done what was it? I've done Tina from what was the character? It was something related to butts. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was I think it was like butt loose Tina.
Oh my. I actually I have a shirt with her where she has like the same face I got as a birthday gift. It has like all the different moods, but it's Tina's straight face every single time. It's like tired, same face, mad, same face. And it's so funny because like my friends like this is so you because a lot of times I have that same like resting bitch face. It's natural. It comes from my father's side of the family. And so it's like when people try to express things to me, I have the same exact look and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, all right, sure. So that shirt describes it perfectly. I have that one and I have the Tina shirt that says butts on it. And I get a kick when I wear it and people are like, you know what? I watched that show and I get it. And I'm like, yeah, see, you go, you know.
The episode that I always think about is the candy factory when they break into the abandoned
Oh my
candy factory.
God.
And Louise, whenever she has like any kind of relationship, not even like the boy band one, it's funny
Mhm.
because she will get attached to the taffy man. She got attached to him, but also like yelled at him, like tell him to shut up, even though he's not saying anything. And I just love.
I was like, this show is so weird, but it's so cool to watch though.
There was one time at Comic Con where I was just sitting somewhere and getting sketches done and charging my phone because at Comic Con, whenever you find an outlet at any convention, you're like, all right, gotta charge up. And I did that, and the cast of Bob's Burgers started showing up in the little area because they were going to do a script read, and I was like, oh, this is cool, this is awesome. I couldn't hear anything, but I was definitely sitting there and just enjoying seeing all the faces show up. And I forget the actor's name, Louise, the voice actress. But yeah, she some drunk because it was Comic-Con and there was a bar just a few feet away. He just started waltzing with her. And her handler came in to try to interrupt the waltz, but she just kept going with it, and it was pretty funny to see. So, what kind of words of inspiration would you give to anyone who decided to start painting for like 3 years and get amazing?
I definitely want to say pack your patience. Rome was definitely not built in a day. Know that you have to try different other mediums. With like, granted, I use acrylics. Sometimes most people don't work with acrylics. Some people feel like oil is their best bet, or maybe watercolors are their best bet. Learning to take your time to mess around with the colors, to know, like, what works, what blends well, what doesn't. Learning different types of brushes. Like, some people can be fine with using just one, people can use others. But never be scared to start over. That's why they have gesso. It's probably the best thing they've damn near invented for it. Also understand that the more layers, the darker your colors can be. So also be mindful in the color choices that you're choosing, and just learn how to have fun with it. Don't take it so serious. Learn to step away if you need. Take a break if you feel like you're getting that real angry at it. Just, it's totally fine. If you have a dope playlist, that helps too, to get the work done faster. I probably have maybe 6 or 7 different playlists that suits my moods for a lot of the work that I create. For now, lately it's been a lot of R&B, but then lately I've been listening to my workout playlist to get most of my paintings done, which is cool. It's like having that good balance. So that's definitely my advice for anybody. And never be scared to ask questions. Google and YouTube will always be your best bet. And even sometimes if you go to some of these local art stores like Jerry's, what's another one, Blick, a lot of them are mostly actual artists who do work, whether it might be related to your medium or not. They can also be a good outsource use, to help you get to where you need to be. I can't count how many endless times different canvases I had to buy, and I did not understand what that meant. The difference between cotton, there's linen, there's duck type canvas, and I'm like, okay, so then what works with paint? They're like, well, all of them do. And I'm like, okay, so what works with acrylic paint then? All of them. I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. I need to know what's going to give me the clean lines and all that stuff. And they're like, well, it just depends on what size. And I'm like, okay. So I always say, never be hesitant. Just have fun, reach out, practice, and pack your patience.